Okay, continuing on with the grass, I'm going to go ahead and grab another one of the custom nodes, and we can go ahead and put two in here, just so we don't have to get them later. Let's go ahead and get LZ filter grayscale. LZ is short for lazy because this was originally called Lazy Paint Box. And then we're also going to grab colorize, and I want to grab masks and light. We don't need these ones for now, but it's nice to just have them in the project, and I'll explain those in just a little bit. So for the filter, we're this filter node is pretty much just a quick and dirty way to get some little effects on here. And one of the things that I want to do is kind of inflate and soften up the shape. Um, that might require us to blur this as the slope input a little bit. So in that blur, I'm just going to take it down to like 1. So a little bit of smearing, a little bit of inflate, and we get something more painterly in that way already. I don't think I want to play with the filter and smooth. There's a lot of fun options in here. Like for the slope intensity, you'll see it's not doing anything until we increase the mask position. And that way you can have some interesting ways of distributing that slope blur. So we're kind of busting up the height map this way. And so for the grass itself, I'm not too interested in the slope, but I did want to kind of painterize that height map. And we could even give it the slightest blur if we need. I don't know if 0.1 is what I'm reaching for. It is. Pretty cool. Okay, so I'll take a blend node, and we're going to put something pretty cool in here. What I'd like to put is a... we'll take it from this blur, actually. And I think I want to warp it. Just a regular warp. I'm going to plug the brush into the actual input, and it's going to be warped by the height map. So now we have these random brushstrokes that are being distributed kind of across our height map. We can play with the intensity, see if we find something that looks a little more tame. And so now we have these brushstrokes that are sort of following the edges of the curvature without going too crazy. I don't mind taking another filter node and sort of seeing if that same effect does something cool for us here. It does. It does. We could even have it be does. We could even have it be a little tamer. And so yeah, this filter node's a really fun way to start inflating and smearing your shapes based off an input, and depending on what style you're going for, there's even a quantize node, so you can quickly get those values without having to add to your graph. Really fun and easy to use. And the PBR version applies to the whole material at the end. That'll be really cool to see as well. I think I am going to quantize it a little bit. Let's see what that warp can do for us now. See, we're just experimenting and seeing how these custom nodes can help boost sort of the creativity of how we approach Substance Designer. So I'll take this, and I think I'm just going to try to overlay this. And a small overlay at 0.3 adds some, cool, interesting effects to this height map. This is no longer, and the AO and the normal. You'll see it's not exactly realistic in terms of what the height map is doing, but that's because we're not going to use this iteration of the height map. We're going to be putting more effects on it soon to give it a very painterly abstract effect. So after that blend node, I'm going to go ahead and get the full value out of this with the auto levels node. And now this has brightened up our image quite considerably. I also wouldn't mind trying to get another blend out of this cool painterly image we have. So I'm just going to blur it a little bit, and for this one, I think I'm just going to try and multiply. And even more so, we're getting some cool variation out of there. So I'll use shift to drag these outputs out. And I'm also going to add a histogram running the final values of what our height map is doing. Yeah, the final, because you're not going to always want that full 0 to 1 range within the height map itself until until you're getting to that output phase, because yeah, Yeah, simple as that. So let's frame this up. And I'm actually going to make sure we leave these. I'm going to unplug these PBR attributes because we're going to be using something else near the end to get it actually working the way we need. So plug these basic inputs back in for now. I'm going to frame this, and we'll call it the grass details. Looks like I deleted the histogram range. That's okay. Very cool. So what we're going to do is actually take one more custom node from the paint box, and we're going to get filter PBR from the paint box, and we're going to get filter PBR. So we're going to start setting up our base Painterly output. This is a pretty crazy node, and it just makes it so that the final outputs, which would be these, we're plugging into here instead, and it's going to let us pump some of the similar effects we have going on here into the entire PBR material, which is pretty cool. So for now, let's delete the default inputs, and let's plug these in correctly. Normal does go to normal. Roughness, metallic, our height, our ambient occlusion. And we'll see these two nodes right here, and I'll explain them really quick. O stands for occlusion, R stands for roughness, and D stands for displacement, which is also height. When you're packing your textures for Unreal, you don't want to work with like 50 black and white textures, and you can actually pack 4 black and white textures in texture. So this is like the optimized output. Depending on what the shader's doing, you might want the metallic in the blue channel, or you might want the displacement in the blue channel. So we actually do have, both options. And in fact, I'm going to add we're going to add a few outputs. Whoops, I'll type spacebar output. And this one I want to be normal GL. And that way we can preview the materials correctly in Blender as well as we're previewing the materials. So I'll take that same output and just plug it into the normal GL. I'm actually not going to use any sort of output for that, for the 3D view. So I'm going to get another output, and we'll call this one ORDM. We'll put the same thing for the label. And I don't think we need a usage for this. Just going to switch the letters around for this one. ORMD and ORMD. Very cool. We have both packed textures now. Let's make sure that normal GL has a label too. We have all sorts of outputs ready to go, except for the fact that these are in the wrong spot. ORDM and ORMD. Awesome. So before we get started on the color, I think it would be cool to take care of the other outputs first. So this is our base height map, right? And already, I want to see if we need to unsmear or uninflate some of this. Perhaps we're going to go with the regular version. Yeah, that's a little more subtle. I do enjoy that more. Then we'll have this blur take care of this pattern, plugged into here. Just kind of refining this a little bit. I think I enjoyed that a little more as well. So with this being our final height map, let's go ahead and process it for the lazy filter PBR. If I press Alt when I have a node dragged out, I can create a dot node, and it can help me kind of organize my graph a little bit better. So first things first, let me go ahead and get our masks node. And this is going to help us create our roughness map, because it takes the normal, it takes the height, and it processes it in a way where, for example, that inverted ambient occlusion little formula we did is automatically built into this. You would just increase the opacity and find the values you enjoy along with the change in blend option. So it gets a little abstract, it gets a little crazy, but it's better than trying to figure out the perfect solution of nodes. So I'm just playing with what I find to be the most interesting. And if we're trying to raise some of these black values, we probably... I'll increase that even more. Painterly materials aren't typically extremely contrasted. However, I will plug this into a levels node after. Or actually a histogram range. and we'll get a little bit more control over that final output. So maybe I'll decrease the base position now. We'll have the range take care of some of that contrast. Cool. And so I'm going to plug this into the roughness. Let's get the same one and get this for the height. And before we do that, let's actually get the auto levels. And I'm going to press D to dock the auto levels node because there's no settings to change in that one. The same if I hold Alt and click on the node, it'll add a dot node so I could start, bringing them out from here. Another one I'll grab is the ambient occlusion node again from our height map. I'm going to make this really subtle. Or actually, yeah, I'll change it in here. And that looks pretty good, Roughness looks good. And so to get our normal, we'll just take a normal, and you can choose between the normal or normal Sobel. In my experience, I appreciate the output of this a little more. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I'm going to set it to something like 5 so that I can actually take down the intensity in Unreal Engine if need be. And then we will start working on our color in a moment. For the metallic, I'm just going to get a uniform color and set it to grayscale. It's at black. And we'll dock that. And I'm going to get another brush node. I'll copy and paste that over here. And preset 1 is definitely my favorite when it comes to a starting point for how you want to slope blur in a pretty painterly way. Despite how this specific pattern looks, it does the job of what the slope blur needs to do really, really well. Let's increase the Y amount. And I'm playing with the depth. Maybe the fade a little bit. This has a lot of cool, interesting effects built right within this node. And I'm going to put this into the output. We will call this section, if I frame it, PBR. We have our outputs. It's definitely coming together. I'm going to make sure we take the intensity and just put all of these at 0. Nice, nice, nice. Put all of these at 0. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so we're going to be taking the initial height map output, and we're going to start building our color map out of that. For starters, we always want some sort of effect to overlay it on, so I'm actually going to get another brush node for now, and I'll actually get another masks node too. And I'm going to plug the original height into this mask, and I think I'm looking for something similar, but I want less AO in the mix and more curvature. And I think I'll invert this. We're looking for something to give us some detail around the edges. I think we're almost there. I think we're going to need more range. And there we go. Yeah, some of these other sections we're taking down. I'm playing with we have some interesting height information to work off of for a blend. So first things first, I think I want to take a regular blend, and we're going to get our crazy version as well. We're going to put this on top and plug this into the colorize node. Not only is it going to be the slope blur, but I want it to be the mask as well. It creates some really interesting effects. We can go ahead and pick our first 2 colors. So I'm going to grab a uniform color. And I'll find a green. Kind of unsaturate it a little bit. And we'll get a dark one and a light one. Let's see if I need to change the hue a little bit here. Maybe that was too much. So I'm just going to plug both of these in here. The colorize node is like a quick a blend, like the traditional blend, but it comes with a couple extra effects to get a pattern that's a little extra interesting. I'm finding 2 values that I find work better with each other. Even if they're not too different. So with this, we could change the way that the mask is distributing between these two colors. So if I go to the position, we can get, a different threshold of what we find looks interesting. That's what's pretty cool about the colorize node. We can always distort it up with that same slope. And we could always plug a different input into the slope blur section of it. Just a little distortion of it. Just a little distortion is, it's not bad, not bad. Okay, so with the brush node 2, I just want to create like a new type of little overlay pattern on this. So I'm okay having some black in the mix, so I'm going to increase the mask random. I might change the slope scale, or actually with that in mind, with the slope scale increase, we could change the regular scale, increase subtract, and just try to find something new and interesting from these effects. I'll change the mask again. And I'll plug this into the opacity. I'll find one more color that I enjoy. Let's go with something, I guess, based off this and a little bit darker and yellower. Saturated? Let's find out. Plug this into the color. See how I feel about that. Looks like we can increase the position. Okay, and so now I know I want something a little more green, maybe brighter. Change the contrast. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And the thing is with the grass though is that in the final tiling, we're gonna have to take out a lot of this contrast. So even the stuff I'm doing here, we're gonna kind of green it out because we do need the base landscape grass texture to be as simple as possible. With that in mind, we can create, the world's simplest painterly noise. This is kind of like the fast food version of Lazy Brush right here. And it's how we all make our stylized materials. It is just a Clouds 2 with a kind of a histogram scan. And don't let anyone tell you that using this is wrong. Look at that. It's still a wonderful noise that can do a ton of things. I'm going to take a blend. I'll create one more brush. And what I'm looking to do is create a very small version of this. I want little dots of detail. I'm not sure if this is going to be the correct shape for us, but I'm going to take out the fade. Maybe undo that scale. And I can even change the brush shape. So I'll unmask some of these, take the scale really low, including more scale variation. Just want this to be really dottish and weird. We could even change the scale so that they are less elongated if we need. Okay, and now if I plug this into here, into the background input of the blend with this in the foreground, set to multiply. Now we're taking out, these little dots in a more interesting way. So I can plug that into the blend another time. We need this to be the opacity. Get this as the background. We'll get one more color of our choosing. This one, I want to be brave and say I want something more saturated and more yellow. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's consolidate this a little bit. As confusing as it looks sometimes, you won't regret having your graphs look smaller. I prefer consolidated and smaller over spread out and I don't know, makes 1% more sense. It doesn't have to be extreme though. And the whole point of Paintbox is to sort of be able to create these materials without, plugging a ton of nodes into each other. I want to see if this is benefiting us for the height map. You know what? It helps a little bit for the multiply. I'm going to get rid of the overlay one, and we are using it. What I wouldn't mind is taking a histogram scan on this guy. Yeah, I want the original height mask here. These are extra effects layers here. And I'd like to give our original wacky overlay a dedicated like color. So I'll just take a blend. For the histogram scan, I'll increase the position. Just play around with that. I'll find a color I enjoy. Already, not bad. With that in mind, we might want this to be more yellow too. Now we're being a little bolder with our colors. Okay, very cool looking. I'll bring this up. Let's see what we need to drag out. Looks like, you know, for sake's sake, let's see if this can be pulled off as the slope blur. I think I want a little more yellow in this now. Okay, I just didn't want a node to be used all the way across here for no good reason, if you ask me. Now I'm okay making this one a little greener. And we'll mask out some of these guys. So the last thing I want to do to the color is take the light node. And this is a fun one to where it's going to read both the height and the color. There is a normal map version, excuse me, but I'm going to switch it to height map. We're going to plug the height map into there. And it's reading that height map information and projecting colors on it. And so it's going to be able to blend with our color map really well. I'll probably have to make the default values better, but here's how it really works. Just take everything down to 0. It's just letting you know that it works, right? So AO, opacity, none, shine, none, cast shadow, none. And we can start from a better starting point. So we typically only need 1 or 2 in each section. If it looks funky, right, like it does right here, that means we need to increase either the height to normal intensity, the threshold, or the blur. So let's take another look at our height map. Maybe let's get the auto levels version of this. That might also help us a little bit. Okay, so opacity 1 is the top-down light. This can be, you know, I'll actually set it to none for this one. Direction works better for some of these. I think this kind of north-facing light going downwards actually looks a little better. And I'm just working with these at low opacities. You know, for now, I'll keep it a little higher and we can change the final blend. But these are different shadow directions as well. I find AO to be a little more useful in this case. Set it to something super, super subtle. Changing its position adds a little more variation there. And maybe we just don't. Yeah, we need this really, really subtle. And what I will change, though, is the shine opacity. These are little speckles of speculators that are being baked into the light in a very fun way. Okay. And I've scrutinized this enough. We even have mask outputs if you want to see how that's all being operated on. And I went really subtle with this. I really did. Maybe I do want some top down though. I can blur it. put that into color. Now we're starting to get there. In this scenario, the normal map is super strong. So first things first, it's just grass. Let's take it down. And next up, we'll check on the ambient occlusion, and that's pretty rough looking too. For painterly materials, I go really light on the ambient occlusion. We'll try to be brave and boost it up a little bit. Okay, so we have this material, and first things first, I'm gonna go to quantize. I'm just gonna quantize the whole thing. I'm gonna see what amount of steps. Don't push it too far, but add some nice color variation. Kind of liking that. So 20 steps isn't bad for there. Let's check out what we want to do in the effects panel. I think a little bit of inflate looks good with this grass. And more than anything, yeah, I don't know. I boosted that way too far, but in theory, I don't want the sharpness to demand too much attention in this. So I am trying to play with both the filter and the smoothness. And this is from the built-in Kuwahara filter. It's just part of this package. I don't think smear is going to work for us in this scenario. And again, because I know that like this is the part where I'm going to get one more blend node, plug it into here, and just get a uniform color that is kind of being the deciding factor as to what the main color is. And see, now the quantize might not give us hues that I was exactly desiring. And so that's where you play with both the quantize and the fact that this HSL node comes before the quantize. So with that in mind, it just seems like the darker variation within here might be too saturated. So I'm going to bring up the brightness, take down the saturation, change the hue. Okay, so we're getting some little bit of greens in there. And let's see if we can hunt down a fun, maybe bluish hue. You know, this part could be a little finicky, but you're just trying to decide what color makes you the happiest. And lastly, for the slope intensity, I'm going to start busting up this material with the painterly effect. Okay, and you know, it's basic, but that's exactly what we need for the grass. So I'm just going to take down this and this. Fade, no depth. I want these to be pretty sharp, contrasty differences. You can even see if it's busting it up to the way we desire by changing that height scale. Change with the... Okay. Cool. So you can always change the saturation. You can always change the quantize amount. In fact, I think I do want a little more control over that. And we have a nice grass. You could even undo this blend if you want to get your complete colors back. I just know I want this to be pretty subtle in its color changes. And then in Unreal, it's not going to have tessellation. So it'll look something more like this in the final package. But that is going to be the template basically for a lot of our other materials. So hopefully we won't have to set up every single color combination for all 10 materials. Well, pat yourselves on the back. Good job on this material. And next, I think we'll go ahead and make the kind of a similar one to this with the roof texture. So I'll see you there.